What are going to be the best day one decks for Havok? Are you going to want to either spend tokens and or use your spotlight caches to get this card? We're going to dive right into this and look at 4 decks. Shout out to Marvel's Snap Zone for giving a great tool builder for that. So looking at the card, Havok. This is probably a card that I flip-flopped on more than any other card I've seen in the game. Been going from trash, the worst card in the game, to, you know what, this actually might be good, to this is going to be super toxic. Is this going to be one of the best cards in the game? No, this is the trash card. So it is TBD for sure. I cannot sit here and say one way or another, given my flip-flopping on this card. I got to own that. I'm going to share that with you. I want to just be upfront. That's the way it is. I'm guessing any content creator out there who says it's definitely good is guessing, but I think it could be either. So Havok is going to cost 2, 0 power. It's got no on reveal, no ongoing. After each turn, you lose 1 max energy, and this gains +4 power. So it definitely has a lot of potential to gain power. The losing 1 max energy, if you are confused about this, think about whatever turn you play this card on, that's the energy you're stuck with at the rest of the game. So you lose 1 max energy each turn. Play it on 2. That means on 3 you'll have 2. Okay, because you've lost 1. And then on turn 4, you'll then lose 2. So you get 2 energy. On turn 5, you'll lose 3 energy. So that's how this card's gonna work, which sucks because it's like, well, that's losing energy sucks for just 4 power in 1 lane. So you've got to be really, really careful with how you play this card. I do think there's going to be some serviceable uses for him. And we've got some key things to share about this card at the end, obviously. So we always want to share that stuff with you. So we wanted to say that the decks you're going to want to look to be playing with them. Again, you're either going to want to throw it to your opponent or have cards in hand that cost something that you can play after playing Havok. So let's look at the decks. Again, giant shout out to Marvel Snap Zone for having their deck builder. I absolutely love this thing. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the one that you're probably going to hear from everybody is a junk deck. Havok Junk is going to be something where you're going to want to throw your Havok onto the other person's side. Now, well, I'll save that for the end. We're going to give you a key for all those who stick around. So what we're looking at here is just a general junk deck that we think might be good. You can obviously put in any sort of junk deck type cards that you want, but what we've got here is Viper and Havok. That's the key, right? I've also added Shang in here, which is not a junk card. Reason being is if you are able to throw over Havok with your Viper, you're going to want to make sure that you can take it out with your Shang-Chi. Everything else, maybe except for Nico, but Nico's so versatile. I love her in almost all decks. Plays into that junk archetype with the Hood, getting an additional demon with that, Ravana Renslayer to potentially get Hood, Havok, either of the goblins cheaper, and Black Widow. So then we've got Black Widow, and then you're just messing with your opponent. You've got Debris, both goblins, Sentry, and then Annihilus. So that way you don't have any risk of being stressed out about your Sentry, etc. But remember, if you can't Viper your Havok, you really want to play a different route here. And that's why I wanted to sort of make a regular sort of junk deck with Annihilus here. It's like, well, I still want to be able to have a serviceable situation. And you don't have as many people playing Annihilus these days. So you can feel comfortable not having the Annihilus back to you and worrying about who's got the priority as far as Annihilus goes. You can feel comfortable knowing whatever you're going to throw over there is going to get thrown over. So this deck I think is going to be okay. It's probably not my favorite of the bunch, but it's a solid one nonetheless. Next one we've got up is something I'm going to call Two's Company. Oh, and actually before I go to that, so the cards you could take out of this, Nico, Debris, we're going to look at maybe putting in Miss Marvel, Zabu, Man-Thing, Onslaught, Armor Hazmat, stuff that you just sort of put in junks. Now, why would you want something like Onslaught in this? Really for Miss Marvel. So that's like, they go hand in hand if you're going to do that. All right, so let's get to this deck now, Two's Company. The point of this deck is really to play, well, you could play Havok on turn 2 and not stress about it. Now, you wouldn't be able to play Polaris, but all these other cards you could potentially play. Because if you get Silk down and then you put a card on Silk, you could get your Spider-Man Miles to be able to be 1 cost. Go ahead and play that. There are a boatload of good 2-cost cards. What I like about this is if there's no Viper, right? No Viper here. So you're keeping your Havok. So you're going to want to protect your Havok. We've got armor in this one. You might want to throw in Cosmo because of the same card we've got in here, Shadow King. We just like that as a tech card in this because Shadow King can do some work all over the map. There's anything that you could put out there, someone else's Havok, even though I don't think that's super stressful, but maybe someone else's Venom, that you're going to want to make sure that you can take back down to 3, 0, etc. Whatever you want to take down. So I like that a lot. You've got Ravana here. What's Ravana doing for you? She's really just bringing down Black Widow. She's bringing down Havok. I could see somebody wanting to take that out and getting one of the better 2-cost cards in here. She's the first. You know what? We're taking her out right now. And I think the next best card to put in here, let's go ahead and put Mirage in here. Again, a ton of good 2-cost cards. This is what we do here is we think of something and we're like, you know what? We don't like that as much as we thought originally. We're going to change it. Ravana, you can still put in here, but the truth is I don't think she gets that much use here. I even think Black Widow's my other card that I first take out. Like I said, endless good 2-cost cards. Medusa, Mojo, do the combination of Bucky and Carnage. We mentioned Cosmo earlier. What about Lizard and Luke Cage? We've got Lizard in here right now. Maybe we bring in Luke instead of Black Widow. That's not bad for one lane. You could think about that. America Chavez is okay. Mordo's annoying. You could try Viper, but then you don't have anything with your Shang-Chi to take out the Havok if you throw it over. Cloak is a good 2-cost card. But really, I'm just trying to win a lane with my Havok. The other lane that I'd want to try to win, I'm putting Goose on. I want to try to put Goose on that lane and then move things around a little bit and try to get Miles. You've got Polaris to also help with some moves in case you play Havok on 3 or something along those lines. Something to think about. But again, remember, whatever turn you're playing Havok on, you're going to be stuck at that energy, which is why I've got as many low costs as I can with the 2s, just sort of stick with the theme. You could go with a little bit more 1s, but we have a 1-cost deck Zoo type that we're going to get into. We already talking about all the alts in and out, so let's go ahead and go to the next deck. We're going to talk about negative Havok here. So this is a Mr. Negative deck, really leaning into the zeros and be able to use Jane Foster to pull them out. So you've got Zabu and Ravana to try to get your Mr. Negative. At that point, it's not about Havok necessarily early. It's about getting to the point where you can get Zola, Null, Mystique, Iron Man. You want these zeros, and that's where Jane Foster comes in. I've got Crystal to help potentially draw additional cards. I've got Magic to help extend the game. But you really just want to double up your lanes and then potentially Zola your Havok or Zola your Null. Something that's getting destroyed. If you get your Alioth, I mean, that's a 2/6. That's not too bad. You could be doing all sorts of different weird, fun things with this if you can get your zeros out on the board late in the game after you've Mr. Negative them. So I like this a little bit. I don't love Mr. Negative, though. It's a high risk, high reward deck. I want to play this for fun to see how decent it'll feel. But if you don't hit your negative, like, is this going to feel okay? I don't know. Havok could get big. You know, your Ravana could help get some cards cost a little cheaper, but, you know, nothing great. And Jane's basically wasted if you don't get Mr. Negative. So, I mean, she's just worth 8 points. If I'm looking at this, taking things out, Crystal and Alioth, maybe bring in Bishop. You could go a route of like Black Panther Wong, which ties in with the Arnim Zola. That might be a little bit better secondary bet for you. I really went in all in one direction here. A lot of people don't like that risk-reward type situation. They want to give themselves a little bit more versatility while playing. If you're into that, I would highly recommend doing the Wong Black Panther thing. So last but not least, as far as decks that we want to go here, we're going to do the Havok Zoo. Now, while I saved this one for last, I don't know if I love this one given that Killmonger easily destroys this. It just does. Now, we've got cards coming that's going to prevent that, so maybe at some point this is actually a pliable deck, but we'll see. Right now, I've got, obviously you've got to have Khazar in it. I've got Shauna in at the moment. I think she's one of the cards you want to take out first, but the idea here is well, look, you can't play Khazar or Shauna unless you play Havok on 3. So you really want to get Zabu played before that. If you don't do that, things start to fall apart real quick. But you could save Havok. I mean, look, you play Havok on 5, it's not the end of the world. Like, it's still it'd become a 2/8. That's a really good card. Like, playing Havok on 5 is not bad. 2/8 is good. Spoiler on one of the keys at the end, but we're almost at the end. So yeah, I feel like you deserve it if you've made it this far. So thank you. That's one of the keys that we're going to talk about. The other cards here, I've got Bass to hit almost all of these cards. Really, it hurts Khazar, Martyr, and Ebony Maw. But the idea is that, you know, if you've got Maw in hand, you're really wanting to zero Maw early. So more than likely, your Bass you're probably using on turn 2 or 3. But maybe you're using it on turn 1 because you don't have Maw in hand. And even if you hit Khazar or Martyr, it's like, it's at 1 point. It's not that big of a deal. So Nico's just a great 1 cost. Ant-Man because, you know, he gets more points when you fill in the lane. 0 to hit that Maw, that Martyr. I also talked about maybe putting in Titania here. The other ones, Echo, Iceman, Hawkeye, Squirrel, so, you know, Spider-Ham. I already talked about Titania. You might think about Armor to protect some, but I think it's kind of a waste. Snow Guard is actually a good 1-cost card to give you some 3s with decent power and maybe do some location manipulation. Something to think about Forge as well. I like Bass hitting the hood to give me a 1-cost demon, which also takes advantage of the Khazar as well. So decent things. Martyr should be full, so a 1/4 is pretty good. You know, everything here. Nebula is one of the best 1-cost cards in the game. She'll keep getting points as long as she's out on the board and they're not playing on her. Great. Good. Love it. I think this is decent. Of all 3 of these or 4 of these decks, I'd probably lean into Havok Junk or Two's Company. I'll try Negative Havok and Havok Zoo just to get a feel for it. But I just, at this point in the meta, you know, like 1-cost Zoo decks, they're not really cutting it. I mean, right now people are playing blobs that are 30, 40, 50, 60 points. This isn't going to hit that. You know, it's just not. And then they Taskmaster it. Like, this isn't going to rank up to that. So that's when you get into things like maybe this negative could work. You know, maybe you throw in a Shang-Chi and destroy your blob. All of a sudden this null gets really big. That's pretty awesome. You also Mystique that. Pretty great. Two's Company, you're limiting people from playing in certain areas. Maybe your Havok gets pretty big, but again, that's not going to compete with whatever happening with blob. Sort of problematic. Havok Junk, now this maybe could compete with that. You know, you got your Shang-Chi to potentially not just destroy Havok, but whatever else somebody else has on the board, and you're filling up their board so they can't play a whole lot. So I'd feel probably best about this Havok Junk and what was the other one that I guess, well, no, I mean negative, some version of negative. So that, as you look at that, it's like, really, those are your 2 options? Look, there might be more, but makes you think maybe it isn't that great of a card. So now, questions about as far as the biggest keys for this specific card. One I already mentioned. The other one I want to talk about is if you do go the route of Viper Havok, you need to snap early. You are not going to get 8 cubes with these sort of decks because someone who gets Havoked and doesn't plan on having a Havok is going to be annoyed. And it's going to be like, great, now I can't do anything. I'm leaving. So you need to snap right away. Snap before you play Havok, snap before you play Viper. So what I mean by that is if you have Havok and Viper in hand early, snap. And then hope that your opponent snaps as well so you can lock in 4 cubes. That's probably about as good as it's going to get. I wouldn't expect to do much better than that. And even then, not a ton of people are going to snap before turn 2 or 3 in a situation like that, thinking that they've got a great situation. They might, but you never know. My questions are, what decks are you going to be playing? Are any of these checking the boxes for you? Do you like them at all? Do they suck? Let me know in the comments below. Are you going to open spotlights for Havok? Now, this is what we're going to look at. First off, it's Series 4. So if you've been paying attention to anything I've said on this channel ever, as far as spotlights go, you know we don't like spending spotlights on Series 4 cards. So, but let's take a look at the other versions of cards in here. I love Legion and Nico as far as cards go, but these variants, I don't know if they're doing it for me. So I'm not pulling for those variants. I do like the Havok variant a little bit. If you don't have Nico and you don't have Legion, honestly, I'd still probably see if I could find it in another spotlight. But spending 3,000 tokens to get Havok, I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now, if you're low on tokens, I would not use your tokens for a card like Havok. I would save it for something else. I don't think he's going to do much with the meta. I think there are a lot better things out there right now, and he's very easily taken off the board with a Shadow King and or a Shang-Chi. So, yeah, don't use spotlights or tokens on it unless you've got a plethora of tokens. And Unless you're, I mean, honestly, if you're watching this video and you're wondering about spotlights, you've already made your decision. You know you're going to pull spotlights to get something out of there. So appreciate you making it this far. We don't have anything else on here. So if you want to help further support the channel, please consider hammering down that like button. Until next time, we hope you have a wonderful day.